The obstacle course stretched across the training facility like a test of human limits, each station designed to break someone before building them back up. Staff Sergeant Maya Chun cleared the final wall climb in 43 seconds, her boots hitting the ground with precision timing. The rope swing, the tire run, the cargo net, all behind her now. Her lungs burned, but her breathing stayed controlled as she approached the last station. The deadlift bar weighted with 235 pounds loaded across its width. Master Sergeant Derek Voss stood beside it with his arms crossed, his expression already showing the satisfaction of someone who knew what came next. 3 other unit members, Kowalski, Burns, and Martinez, clustered near the equipment shed watching with poorly concealed anticipation. Chun gripped the bar, set her stance, and pulled. The weight rose 6 inches off the ground before her grip faltered and the bar crashed back down. She reset, pulled again. 8 inches this time. The bar dropped. Her third attempt got the weight to her knees before her lower back gave out, and she had to release. 220 pounds. 15 short. Voss stepped forward, his voice carrying across the training yard loud enough for the entire assembled unit to hear. You fail, Chun. Cannot meet the standard. The minimum is 235, and you cannot lift it. Chun straightened despite the fatigue burning through her muscles. Master Sergeant, I completed the course in record time, and my 47 mission record speaks to my capabilities in actual combat conditions. Voss's satisfaction deepened into something closer to vindication. Record time does not matter when you cannot carry a wounded teammate. High scores on paper do not matter in a firefight. This unit requires strength, not bookwork. Kowalski laughed first, a sharp bark of amusement that carried across the yard. Burns joined in with a headshake. Martinez crossed his arms and said something to the others that Chun could not quite hear, but recognized from their reactions as another joke at her expense. Women trying to play soldier, one of them said, the words floating across the morning air. Chun kept her expression neutral. I have strategic certifications in mountain warfare, tunnel navigation, and advanced tactical planning. My specialized skills have contributed to mission success in situations where raw strength was irrelevant. Voss waved his hand as if brushing away smoke. Paperwork does not matter in a firefight, he repeated. When bullets fly and you need to breach a door or carry equipment under fire, your certifications mean nothing. This unit needs soldiers who can handle the physical demands of real combat. From the observation deck 30 meters away, Lieutenant Rodriguez made a notation on his evaluation tablet. As the assigned training observer, his role required documenting performance metrics across all candidates. He pulled up Chen's complete file with quick finger movements across the screen. 47 successful missions. Highest tactical reasoning scores in unit history. Expert certifications in 6 specialized combat areas. Her strategy development had been cited in 4 after-action reports as critical to mission success. He looked up at the scene playing out below, where Voss continued addressing Chun with the rest of the unit as his audience. You have 72 hours to pass the retest, Voss announced. If you cannot lift 235 by Thursday morning, you are removed from this unit. No exceptions, no accommodations. We maintain standards here. Chun wondered if soldiers training back in California, where she had first enlisted, faced these same arbitrary measures that reduced a soldier's worth to a single number on a barbell. She had seen plenty of strong soldiers freeze under fire and plenty of smaller ones make decisions that save lives, but apparently those observations held no weight here. She nodded once. Understood, Master Sergeant. I will be ready Thursday. Voss dismissed her with a gesture and turned toward his preferred team members, already moving on to the next training schedule. Chin walked toward the barracks, her gear bag slung over her shoulder. She passed the equipment shed where Kowalski, Burns, and Martinez still stood in their small cluster. Too weak for this unit, Burns said as she approached, not bothering to lower his voice. Gonna get someone killed trying to keep up. Chin kept walking. She had been in combat while these three were still in basic training, had navigated situations they had only simulated, but explaining that seemed pointless when the only metric that mattered was 15 pounds of iron she could not lift. At the barracks, she found her locker already marked with a red tag. Supply staff worked efficiently. Her tactical gear, the equipment she had maintained meticulously for 3 years, was being inventoried for redistribution. The combat knife her father had carried in Desert Storm, the modified holster she had designed for faster draw time, the rappelling harness customized to her smaller frame, all of it cataloged for someone else to use. She sat on her bunk and looked at her hands. These hands had assembled explosives under fire, treated bullet wounds in a moving helicopter, navigated touch-sensitive alarm systems, and eliminated targets at distances that made seasoned snipers take notice. But they could not grip 235 pounds of dead weight, so apparently none of the rest mattered. Thursday morning, 72 hours to prove she belonged in a unit she had served successfully for 3 years. She lay back on the bunk and stared at the ceiling, already running through training modifications in her mind, knowing that 15 pounds in 3 days was nearly impossible, but having no choice except to try. The alarm tore through the barracks at 0400 hours, 2 days before Chen's scheduled retest. Emergency deployment protocols meant something critical had developed, something that could not wait for normal operational timelines. She grabbed her gear and joined the stream of soldiers moving toward the command center. Her muscles, still sore from the previous day's failed attempt at adding weight to her training lifts. The command center buzzed with activity as personnel assembled. Colonel Wright stood at the main display screen, where satellite imagery showed mountainous terrain marked with red tactical overlays. Master Sergeant Voss entered behind Chun, his presence immediately commanding attention from the gathered soldiers. Wright turned to address the room, his voice cutting through the murmur of speculation. "We have a hostage situation 200 miles north. 6 civilians held in an abandoned mining complex. Armed group, unknown size, established position and facility with extensive tunnel networks." The satellite image zoomed closer, revealing a sprawling industrial site built into the mountainside. Multiple buildings connected by covered walkways, ventilation structures protruding from the rock face, and what looked like at least 3 separate entrance points visible from aerial view. "Terrain is challenging," Wright continued. "Mountain warfare conditions, elevation 7,000 feet, facility built into natural cave system with significant modifications for mining operations. Intel suggests hostage takers are familiar with the layout and have had time to establish defensive positions." Voss stepped forward, already assessing his team selection. "I will take Kowalski, Burns, Martinez, Davis, Price, and Hammond. All high-strength performers, capable of handling equipment load and potential forced entry requirements." Wright looked directly at Chun. "Staff Sergeant Chun will accompany the team. She holds expert certification in mountain warfare and tunnel navigation systems. Her expertise in confined space operations is relevant to this mission profile." Voss's jaw tightened visibly. "Colonel, with respect, Chun has not demonstrated the physical capability required for equipment carry in mountain terrain. Her current status is pending removal for failure to meet strength standards." Wright's expression remained neutral, but his tone sharpened. "Master Sergeant, this facility contains over 6 miles of tunnel networks according to archived mining records. Chun has more experience in underground tactical operations than your entire selected team combined. She will accompany you. That is not a request." The briefing continued with threat assessments and equipment loadout specifications, while Voss gathered his chosen team members. Chun pulled the facility blueprints onto her tablet, fingers moving quickly across the dated architectural drawings that showed the original mining layout. The tunnels branched in complex patterns, with ventilation shafts connecting different levels and multiple secondary access points that likely still existed even if the main operations had ceased decades ago. The transport helicopter lifted off 40 minutes later, 6 soldiers plus Chun crammed into the cargo space with full tactical gear. The vibration of the rotors made conversation difficult, but did not stop the pointed looks from Kowalski and Burns seated across from Chun. "Liability," Kowalski mouthed to Burns, the word visible even without sound. Chun ignored them and focused on the tablet display, identifying 4 potential entry points and 7 structural vulnerabilities in the tunnel system based on the architectural records cross-referenced with the geological surveys. The facility had been built quickly in the 1970s during a mining boom, retrofitted multiple times, and abandoned in phases. That history meant inconsistent construction standards and predictable weak points. Voss reviewed his own tactical notes, then raised his voice to brief the team over the helicopter noise. We enter through main tunnel access, clear room by room, locate hostages in central processing area based on thermal signatures, extract through primary route. Fast insertion, overwhelming force, minimal complications. Chen looked up from her analysis. Master Sergeant, the main tunnel has alarm systems that likely still function. Archive facility records show motion sensors installed in 2003 for security purposes. Secondary approach through ventilation shaft system would bypass detection and position us behind hostage-taker defensive setup. Voss did not look up from his notes. Your approach is too complicated for rapid deployment. We breach the main entrance, handle any resistance, secure the hostages. Direct action is what this team excels at. Chun pulled up the thermal overlay on her screen. If we trigger the alarm system at main entrance, hostage takers will have time to reposition deeper into the complex. The ventilation approach puts us past their initial defensive perimeter. I can map the route from the archive system diagrams. Too complicated, Voss repeated, his tone making clear the discussion had ended. We use established tactics, not experimental approaches based on old blueprints. Martinez leaned toward Hammond and said something that made both men smirk while glancing at Chun. She returned her attention to the tablet and began marking the ventilation shaft locations anyway, noting their dimensions and calculating probable accessibility. When you were dismissed from planning, you still prepared for contingencies. That was basic tactical discipline regardless of whether anyone wanted to hear your input. The helicopter descended toward the facility perimeter as dawn broke across the mountain ridges. Rocky terrain surrounded the mining complex, sparse vegetation offering minimal cover. The main tunnel entrance stood visible as a concrete portal built into the mountainside, reinforced and imposing even decades after active operations had ceased. Voss gathered the team at the landing zone, his tactical brief delivered in sharp, efficient phrases. Main entrance breach, standard room clearing procedures, locate hostages via thermal detection, extract through cleared route. Chun, you establish perimeter security position and guard equipment. If you cannot handle entry operations, make yourself useful on Overwatch. Chen opened her mouth to present the alternative approach again, complete with detailed tactical reasoning about avoiding detection and leveraging the facility's structural vulnerabilities. Voss held up his hand to cut her off before she finished the first sentence. That is an order, Staff Sergeant. Perimeter security. We handle the tactical operations. The assault team moved toward the main tunnel entrance in practice formation, weapons ready, movements coordinated from months of training together. Chun remained at the perimeter with the backup equipment and communications gear, watching through the thermal scope as her team disappeared into the concrete portal. 40 seconds later, every alarm in the facility activated simultaneously, the sound echoing across the mountain terrain, even from outside. On the thermal display, she watched the heat signatures inside the facility respond immediately, moving away from the center area and taking positions deeper in the tunnel network exactly as she had predicted they would. The alarm's wail cut through the mountain air, while Chun watched the thermal signatures scatter deeper into the facility. Voss's voice crackled over the radio, tense and clipped. Alarm triggered. Hostiles repositioning. Maintaining entry protocol. Chen activated her communication link. Master Sergeant, thermal shows hostage signatures moving to lower level. They're taking prisoners deeper into the complex as defensive measure. Copy that, Voss responded. We proceed as planned. Rodriguez's voice came through on the command channel from his observation post 300 meters upslope. Lieutenant Rodriguez documenting. Alarm activation occurred at main entrance breach as Staff Sergeant Chun predicted in pre-mission brief. Hostage takers responding with defensive repositioning. The assault team pushed deeper into the main tunnel, their thermal signatures visible on Chen's scope as they advanced through the concrete corridor. The facility's interior layout matched the archived blueprints, at least in this primary section. Wide passages designed for equipment transport, high ceilings, reinforced walls that had survived decades of abandonment. Then the team encountered the blast doors. Chun zoomed her thermal view, watching the signatures cluster at what her blueprints indicated was a checkpoint approximately 200 meters inside the main tunnel. Voss's voice came through again, frustration bleeding into his professional tone. Renforced dos blocking passage. These were not on the intel reports. Chun pulled up the facility modifications log on her tablet. Master Sergeant, those doors were installed in 2007 as part of security upgrade. They are marked on the archived modification plans. The ventilation shaft approach bypasses this checkpoint entirely. Silence stretched for 3 seconds before Voss responded. Burns, set breaching charge on door hinges. Rodriguez made another notation from his observation position, his voice neutral, but his words precise for the official record. Team encountering obstacles that alternative route would have avoided. Staff Sergeant Chen's tactical assessment continues, proving accurate. The breaching charge detonated with a muffled thump that Chun heard both through the radio and echoing from the tunnel entrance. On thermal display, she watched dust or smoke obscure the signatures momentarily. When the view cleared, the team's signatures remained in roughly the same position. Voss's voice carried an edge now. Charge compromised door frame, but created partial structural collapse. Tunnel is partially blocked. Assessing alternative breach points. Chun checked her blueprints against the thermal data. Master Sergeant, that section of tunnel runs through naturally unstable rock formation. The mining records indicate previous collapse incidents in that exact area. Explosive force likely triggered cascade failure in the ceiling support structure. Rodriguez's documentation continued in the background, his professional observations creating an official record of each decision and consequence. Partial tunnel collapse at breach point. Structural instability noted in archived geological surveys reviewed by Staff Sergeant Chun during mission planning phase. The team's signatures shifted on thermal as they attempted to find a path through the debris. Chun watched their movements, calculating the time required to clear enough rubble for passage versus the time hostage takers were using to reinforce their position deeper in the facility. Every minute the team spent dealing with obstacles was a minute the situation deteriorated. She switched to facility-wide thermal view. The hostage signatures had reached the lowest accessible level, surrounded now by multiple hostile signatures in defensive positions. Something else caught her attention. Small heat sources positioned near the hostage cluster. She enhanced the image, checked the thermal patterns, and felt ice settle in her stomach. Colonel Wright, this is Chun. Thermal analysis shows what appear to be explosive devices positioned near hostage signatures. Heat patterns consistent with electronic detonation systems. Wright's response came immediately. Confirm that assessment, Staff Sergeant. Chun ran the thermal data through analysis protocols, comparing the signatures to known explosive device patterns. The match was uncomfortably close. I assess 85% probability these are explosive devices with remote detonation capability. Hostage takers have rigged the prisoners. The radio channel went silent for a moment before Wright's voice cut through. All units, situation is now critical. Hostages are wired with explosives. Master Sergeant Voss, what is your team's status? Voss's voice came through strained. Still clearing tunnel collapse. Will require estimated 20 minutes to breach through debris safely. Alternative access routes from this position would require backtracking to entrance and circling to secondary tunnel, adding another 30 minutes minimum. Wright's tone sharpened. Unacceptable timeline. Hostage takers now have both defensive advantage and detonation threat. Chun, pull up facility schematics and identify fastest route to hostage location. Chun had the data ready before he finished asking. The ventilation shaft network provides access to the lower levels. Entry point is 400 meters east of main tunnel entrance. Shaft dimensions are 18 inches diameter, too narrow for standard equipment load, but navigable for infiltration approach. Can your team use that route, Master Sergeant Voss? Another pause before Voss responded. Negative, Colonel. Shaft diameter is insufficient for our personnel with standard gear. Smallest team member is Burns at 190 pounds and 22-inch shoulder width. Shaft is not viable for this team composition. Chun kept her voice level. I can navigate that shaft system, Colonel. My frame fits the clearance specifications, and I have confined space tactical certification. Absolutely not, Voss cut in. Chun has not been cleared for active tactical operations. She is on perimeter security duty due to her physical inadequacy for this unit. Wright's voice took on an unmistakable command tone. Master Sergeant, Staff Sergeant Chun has more relevant expertise for this exact scenario than any other person in the operational area. Her size is an advantage for this specific approach, not a disadvantage. Continue clearing your route. Chun, prepare for ventilation infiltration. Rodriguez, maintain observation and documentation. Chun was already moving toward the eastern perimeter, her gear stripped down to essential equipment. The ventilation shaft access point appeared on her tactical display, marked with GPS coordinates from the facility blueprints. She covered the 400 meters in 6 minutes, staying low and using the sparse vegetation for concealment. The ventilation shaft entry was exactly where the blueprints indicated, a metal grate covering an opening in the rock face that led down into darkness. Chun removed the grate, noting that it had been undisturbed long enough for rust to weld some of the fasteners. No one had used this access point in years, possibly decades. Rodriguez's voice came through her earpiece. Chun, I have you on visual at shaft entrance. Command has authorized your infiltration approach. Colonel Wright is monitoring on command channel. Chun, check your gear one more time. Pistol, combat knife, minimal ammunition load, communication device, tactical light. Everything else stayed behind because 18 inches of clearance left no room for standard equipment. She activated her throat microphone. Entering shaft now. We'll radio check at each junction point. She lowered herself into the opening, her boots finding purchase on the narrow metal ladder, descending into the mountain. The shaft walls press close on either side, exactly 18 inches of clearance with no room for error or excess equipment. Behind her, natural light faded as she descended into the facility's underground network, where 6 hostages waited with explosives rigged to their bodies and a team of hostage-takers who believed no one could reach them through their defensive positions. The shaft descended 30 meters before the first junction, Chin's tactical light cutting through absolute darkness as she moved. The metal ladder felt solid despite decades of moisture and rust, each rung tested before she trusted her weight to it. Her breathing echoed in the confined space, controlled and measured despite the tight quarters pressing against her shoulders. Radio check, she transmitted. First junction reached. Proceeding east toward facility maintenance level. Rodriguez's voice came back clear. Copy that, Chun. Thermal shows you approximately 50 meters above hostage-taker positions. No movement detected in your vicinity. The shaft narrowed at the junction point, forcing Chun to exhale completely to squeeze through the turning point where 2 ventilation passages intersected. A larger soldier would have stopped here, stuck in the angle where the passages met. Her frame slipped through with inches to spare. She crawled now, the shaft horizontal for this section with barely enough room to pull herself forward using her elbows and knees. The blueprints had shown this passage as 18 inches in diameter, but reality felt closer to 16, especially with her gear compressed against her body. Each meter forward required deliberate movement, no wasted motion. Every breath calculated to maintain the minimal profile needed for progress. Chun keyed her radio. Second junction approaching. Shaft opens into maintenance level access in approximately 30 meters. Wright's voice came through the command channel. Chun, be advised hostage takers are monitoring main tunnel approach. They appear unaware of your infiltration vector. Maintain stealth protocol. Copy that, Colonel. Maintaining radio silence, except junction checks. The shaft walls carried sound from the facility below, voices echoing through the ventilation network in distorted fragments. Chen paused to listen, identifying at least 3 distinct male voices speaking in short tactical phrases. One voice gave orders while the others responded with confirmations. She logged the information mentally and continued forward, her muscles burning from the awkward crawling position, but her pace steady. The maintenance level access appeared as a vertical drop, the shaft angling 90 degrees down for the final 10 meters. Chun positioned herself at the edge and checked below with her tactical light. The shaft opened into a concrete equipment room, empty from what she could see through the grate covering at the bottom. Radio check, she transmitted quietly. Maintenance level access reached. Preparing final descent. Rodriguez responded immediately. Thermal confirms equipment room is clear. No signatures within 20 meters of your position. Chun descended the vertical section slowly, testing each handhold in the ladder. The grate at the bottom had a simple latch mechanism, designed for maintenance access rather than security. She released it carefully to minimize noise and lowered herself into the equipment room. Solid ground felt strange after the confined shaft, her body adjusting to the freedom of movement. The equipment room contained abandoned machinery from the mining operations, large ventilation motors, and ductwork covered in decades of dust. A single door led deeper into the facility, industrial steel with a wire-reinforced window, showing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Chen moved to the door and looked through the wire glass. The corridor stretched 20 meters before branching in 2 directions. Her blueprints indicated the left branch led to the central processing area where the hostages were held. The right branch connected to what had been the facility's security office and communication center. She keyed her radio with minimal volume. In maintenance level, observing facility interior. Multiple hostage taker signatures detected on thermal. Wright's response came measured and quiet. Proceed with reconnaissance. Identify explosive control systems and hostage taker positions. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Chen moved into the corridor, her pistol drawn and her movements silent against the concrete floor. The facility's interior showed signs of recent occupation, fresh footprints in the dust, and equipment that had not been present during the mining operations. Portable generators, communication devices, supplies sufficient for an extended stay. The first hostile appeared at the corridor intersection, a man in tactical clothing focused on watching the main tunnel approach. Chun pressed against the wall and waited for him to complete his patrol pattern, timing his movements. He checked the main corridor twice, then retreated back toward the central area, his attention entirely on the threat he expected from Voss's team. She moved past the intersection and into the security office branch. The door stood open, revealing 2 men monitoring equipment inside. Radio chatter from their devices indicated they were tracking Voss's team progress through the tunnel collapse. One man marked positions on a facility map, while the other communicated with others deeper in the complex. Chen evaluated the situation with tactical precision. The explosive control system would be in this room, monitoring the devices attached to the hostages. Taking this position would neutralize the primary threat. She checked her angles, identified cover points, calculated response times. The first man never heard her approach. She moved through the door with trained efficiency, her knife work precise and silent. The second man reached for his radio, but Chen's strike intercepted his hand before he could transmit. Both threats neutralized within 8 seconds, their bodies positioned to avoid immediate discovery if anyone checked the room quickly. She examined their equipment, finding exactly what she had anticipated. The explosive control panel sat on the desk, a commercial demolition system modified for remote detonation. 6 channels, 6 devices, each showing active status on the display screen. Chun studied the system for 30 seconds, identifying the safety protocols and disarm sequence from her explosives training. The disarm process required 4 minutes of careful work, each channel disabled individually with precise timing to prevent accidental detonation. Her hands moved steadily through the procedure while sweat traced down her spine despite the cool underground air. One wrong sequence, one premature disconnection, and 6 hostages died. Channel 1 disarmed. Channel 2 disarmed. Channel 3 disarmed. Rodriguez's voice came through her earpiece barely above a whisper. Chun, thermal shows increased activity in central chamber. They may be preparing to relocate hostages again. Chen's hands did not pause. Channel 4 disarmed. Channel 5 disarmed. Final channel presented a complication, a secondary safety mechanism she had not encountered before. She studied the wiring for 15 seconds, traced the circuit logic, identified the proper sequence. Her fingers moved through the disarm procedure with controlled precision. Channel 6 disarmed. All explosive systems neutralized. She keyed her radio. Colonel Wright, explosive threat eliminated. All detonation systems disabled and secured. Moving to hostage position. Wright's response carried audible relief. Outstanding work, Staff Sergeant. Voss, Chen has neutralized the explosive threat. Coordinate your team approach with her position for hostage extraction. There was a pause before Voss responded, his voice tight. Copy that, Colonel. We are still clearing tunnel obstacles. Estimated 15 minutes to reach central chamber from our position. Chen checked her tactical display and calculated distances. I am positioned 30 meters from hostage chamber via a maintenance corridors. I can observe and provide tactical intelligence for coordinated extraction. She moved through the facility toward the central chamber, her earlier infiltration route providing perfect positioning behind the hostage-taker's defensive setup. The voices she had heard through the ventilation shafts grew clearer as she approached, men coordinating their watch on the main tunnel entrance where they expected the assault to come from. None of them were watching the maintenance corridor, where Chun positioned herself at the chamber entrance, her view clear through a service door window. 6 hostages sat in the center of the room, their fear visible even from this distance. 4 armed men watched them, weapons ready, attention fixed on the wrong direction entirely. Chun observed the central chamber through the service door window, cataloging every detail with tactical precision. 6 hostages positioned in the center, hands bound behind their backs, expressions showing exhaustion and fear. 4 armed hostage-takers maintained watch positions, their attention focused on the main tunnel entrance where they expected Voss's team to eventually breach through the rubble. She keyed her radio with minimal volume. Colonel Wright, I have visual on hostage chamber. 6 civilians confirmed, for hostiles in defensive positions. All hostile attention is focused on main tunnel approach. They are unaware of my position at maintenance entrance. Wright's response came measured and clear. Chun, you have tactical command for extraction phase. Coordinate with Master Sergeant Voss for simultaneous action. Use your position advantage. A pause stretched across the radio channel before Voss's voice came through, the strain evident beneath his professional tone. Copy that, Colonel. Chen, what is your tactical assessment? Chen studied the chamber layout, calculating angles and timing. The 4 hostage-takers had positioned themselves with good fields of fire toward the main tunnel, but their formation left the maintenance entrance completely exposed. Standard defensive thinking that assumed threats came from obvious approach vectors. Master Sergeant, I can provide distraction from my position while your team breaches through the clear tunnel section. Recommend smoke deployment from maintenance entrance to draw hostile attention and obscure their sight lines. Your team enters during confusion and secures hostages, while I maintain suppression from elevated position. The maintenance entrance included a catwalk that ran along the upper level of the chamber, providing Chun with high ground advantage. The hostage-takers had not bothered to watch it because the access route required navigating the ventilation system they apparently did not know existed. Voss's response took several seconds. Understood. Our team will be in position for breach in approximately 8 minutes. Coordinate timing on your mark. Chun moved from the service door to the catwalk access, her boots silent on the metal grating. The elevated position provided clear angles to the entire chamber, 40 feet above the floor with good cover from the ventilation equipment mounted along the walkway. She positioned herself behind a large air handler unit and checked her sight lines to each hostile position. Rodriguez's voice came through her earpiece quietly. Chun, I am documenting that you have achieved tactical superiority through unconventional infiltration route. Your position would be impossible for standard team composition to reach. Copy that, Rodriguez. Preparing for coordinated extraction. She checked her equipment one final time. 3 smoke grenades taken from the security office, her pistol with 2 full magazines, and the combat knife still ready on her belt. Limited ammunition meant every shot needed to count, every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. The 8 minutes passed slowly while Voss's team completed their tunnel clearance. Shin used the time to memorize each hostile's position and movement pattern. The leader stood near the hostages, radio in hand, communicating periodically with someone outside the facility. 2 others maintained watch on the main tunnel entrance, weapons ready. The 4th man patrolled between positions, his route predictable and timed. Voss's voice broke radio silence. Chun, we are in position at tunnel breach point. Await your signal for coordinated action. Chun pulled the first smoke grenade, her thumb on the pin. On my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. She pulled the pin and tossed the grenade through the service door into the chamber, the canister clattering across the concrete floor before erupting in thick white smoke. The 2nd and 3rd grenades followed immediately, filling the chamber with dense concealment that obscured everything below the catwalk level. The hostage-takers reacted exactly as predicted, their attention snapping toward the maintenance entrance where the smoke originated. Voices called out in confusion, weapons trained on the wrong position. The leader shouted orders to check the maintenance corridor while the chamber filled with white obscuration. Shin moved along the catwalk to her 2nd position, using the noise and confusion to mask her movement. From this angle, she had clear sight to 2 hostage-takers through breaks in the smoke, their thermal signatures visible through her optic even when the smoke blocked visual identification. The main tunnel entrance exploded inward as Voss's team breached through, their entry explosive and coordinated. The hostage-takers spun toward this new threat, caught between 2 directions with visibility compromised by smoke. Chun fired twice, her shots precise through the smoke. The nearest hostile dropped before he could bring his weapon to bear. The 2nd hostile turned toward the muzzle flash from her elevated position, but Chun had already moved, repositioning along the catwalk to a new firing angle. Voss's team entered fast, their weapons adding to the chaos. Burns and Martinez secure the hostages, moving them toward the exit while Kowalski and Hammond provided covering fire. The remaining hostage-takers attempted to establish defensive positions, but Chin's elevated angle gave her clear shots to positions that would have provided cover from ground level. 2 more precise shots eliminated threats that Voss's team could not safely engage. The 4th hostile attempted to reach the radio equipment, likely to trigger whatever backup plan they had established. Chin's shot dropped him 5 feet from his objective. The entire action lasted 42 seconds from breach to all clear. Voss's team secured the chamber, checking each hostile and confirming the threat was neutralized. The hostages, freed from their restraints, moved quickly toward the exit under Martinez's guidance. Chun descended from the catwalk via a maintenance ladder, her weapon still ready until she confirmed the chamber was fully secure. Voss stood near the entrance, his expression difficult to read through the clearing smoke. Martinez passed Chun on his way out with 2 of the hostages, his earlier mockery completely absent. Every turn you marked on the route out, every clearance you calculated, it was all exactly right. We could not have used this extraction path without your measurements. The hostages filed past, moving through the maintenance corridor Chun had cleared and mapped. The passage was barely wide enough for single file movement, with several points requiring careful navigation around equipment and through narrow doorways. The route worked because Chun had navigated it first and verified every clearance. But it would have been impossible to discover or execute without someone her size scouting it initially. Kowalski emerged from checking the secondary chamber, his radio communicating all clear to the command post. He glanced at Chun, nodded once without speaking, and moved to help with hostage escort. Voss approached Chun directly, his jaw tight. You eliminated 4 hostiles from elevated position while coordinating our breach timing. The tactical execution was effective. Chun holstered her weapon. The explosives were commercial demolition systems. All 6 channels disarmed before I moved to observation position. No detonation risk remained during extraction. How did you access the catwalk position? Through the ventilation system. The same route I briefed during mission planning. It provided direct access to maintenance level and elevated positions that traditional entry could not reach. Rodriguez's voice came through the command channel. Colonel Wright, all hostages secured and moving to extraction point. 0 casualties on friendly forces. For hostile threats neutralized. Staff Sergeant Chin's tactical approach achieved complete mission success. Wright's response carried unmistakable satisfaction. Outstanding work to all personnel. Chun, you had tactical command for this phase and executed flawlessly. Master Sergeant Voss, coordinate with Chun for extraction route. She knows this facility better than anyone at this point. Chun pulled up the facility map on her tablet, marking the optimal exit route that avoided structural damage from the earlier breaching charge. The path led through sections she had already cleared, with distances and clearances she had personally verified. Voss studied the route without comment, then gestured for his team to follow Chin's navigation. They moved through the facility toward the surface, 6 rescued hostages surrounded by tactical escorts, following a route only possible because someone small enough to navigate impossible spaces had gone first and marked the way. The extraction team emerged from the facility into morning sunlight, 6 hostages blinking against the brightness after hours in underground darkness. Medical personnel moved forward immediately to assess the civilians, while tactical teams secured the perimeter. Colonel Wright's helicopter touched down 40 meters from the facility entrance, rotor wash kicking up dust across the rocky terrain. Wright stepped from the aircraft and walked directly toward the assembled team, his command presence unmistakable even from a distance. Chin stood with Voss's unit near the equipment staging area, her gear still covered in dust from the ventilation shafts, and her uniform showing the wear from crawling through 18-inch passages. Colonel on deck, someone called out, and the soldiers came to attention. Wright waved them to ease and moved straight to Chun. Staff Sergeant Chun, I need your mission report. Start from the point where you entered the ventilation system. Chun provided a detailed account, her delivery professional and precise. Entry through eastern ventilation shaft at 05:30 hours. Descended 30 meters to junction point. Proceeded east through horizontal passage to maintenance level access. Infiltrated facility interior. Neutralized 2 hostiles in security office. Disarmed 6 explosive devices using commercial demolition protocols. Advanced to observation position overlooking hostage chamber. Coordinated tactical approach with Master Sergeant Voss's team. Provided elevated suppression fire during extraction. 4 hostile threats eliminated. 0 friendly casualties. All 6 hostages secured. Wright nodded throughout her report, his expression showing satisfaction with the outcome. Your decision to proceed with unauthorized entry into the facility was tactically sound given the time constraints and explosive threat. Had communications not been delayed, that authorization would have been granted immediately. Your judgment was correct. Voss stood several feet away, his arms crossed and his jaw working as he processed the mission outcome. Wright turned to address him directly. Master Sergeant Voss, why was Staff Sergeant Chin's initial tactical recommendation dismissed during mission planning? Voss straightened, his response measured. Colonel, I assessed that the ventilation approach was too complex for rapid deployment and presented unnecessary risk compared to direct assault through main entrance. Wright's expression remained neutral, but his tone sharpened. The direct assault triggered facility alarms, forced hostage relocation to defensive positions, encountered unexpected blast doors, resulted in structural collapse that delayed your team by 20 minutes, and left the explosive threat unaddressed. Chen's approach avoided all of those complications. Walk me through your reasoning for dismissing her plan. Voss's discomfort became visible, his weight shifting slightly. Sir, I believe the team needed to maintain standard tactical protocols and that experimental approaches based on archived blueprints introduce variables we could not control. Wright pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Voss. This is Staff Sergeant Chen's complete service record. 47 successful missions. Highest tactical reasoning scores in unit history. Expert certifications in mountain warfare, tunnel navigation, confined space operations, advanced tactical planning, explosives disposal, and close quarters combat. She has more specialized training relevant to this exact mission profile than your entire team combined. Why was this expertise dismissed? The question hung in the mountain air while Voss searched for an answer. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Colonel, my concern was that Chun had failed to meet the physical strength standards required for unit assignment. I questioned whether she could handle the equipment load and physical demands of tactical operations. Wright's voice took on an edge that made several nearby soldiers shift their attention elsewhere. Master Sergeant, what physical strength test would have prevented this mission's success? Chun navigated ventilation shafts your team could not fit through. She eliminated 4 hostile threats with precise marksmanship. She disarmed 6 explosive devices through technical expertise. She provided tactical command that resulted in 0 casualties and complete mission success. Tell me which part of that required her to deadlift 235 pounds. Voss had no response. Wright continued, his words deliberate and sharp. You selected team members based purely on physical strength and dismissed the one soldier with expertise directly applicable to the mission requirements. Your tactical approach failed at multiple points exactly as Chun predicted. The successful outcome occurred because Chun executed the plan you rejected. This represents a fundamental failure in tactical judgment. Rodriguez approached from his observation position, tablet in hand. Colonel Wright, I have completed mission documentation. I recorded Staff Sergeant Chen's pre-mission tactical brief, where she identified the alarm system, blast doors, and structural vulnerabilities that subsequently impacted the operation. I also documented Master Sergeant Voss's dismissal of her recommendations and his reasoning citing her physical inadequacy. Wright accepted the tablet and reviewed Rodriguez's notes, his expression growing more severe with each screen. Master Sergeant Voss, you will face formal review for decision patterns that endangered this mission. Lieutenant Rodriguez will expand his investigation to examine your previous tactical decisions and unit selection criteria. Burns, Martinez, and Kowalski stood in a tight cluster near the equipment, their earlier confidence completely absent. They had witnessed the entire confrontation, heard Wright's assessment, understood that their mockery of Chun had been based on the same flawed judgment their commander had demonstrated. Wright turned back to Chun. Staff Sergeant, you took unauthorized action by entering that facility before clearance was granted. Under normal circumstances, that would result in disciplinary action. However, your tactical assessment was sound, your execution was flawless, and your decision saved 6 lives. I am formally commending your actions and recommending you for mission recognition. Thank you, Colonel, Chun responded quietly. Wright's voice carried across the staging area now, addressing the assembled personnel. This mission demonstrates a critical failure in how we evaluate soldier capability. Physical strength is one component of tactical effectiveness, not the only component. Staff Sergeant Chun succeeded in this mission specifically because of characteristics that traditional strength testing does not measure. Her size allowed access to infiltration routes. Her technical expertise neutralized explosive threats. Her tactical planning provided the approach that achieved mission success. Those capabilities matter more than any lifting requirement. He looked directly at Voss again. You will report to my office at 08 Thunder tomorrow for initial review proceedings. Lieutenant Rodriguez, you will present your complete documentation at that time. I want a comprehensive analysis of unit selection criteria and mission planning processes under Master Sergeant Voss's command. Rodriguez nodded. Yes, sir. I will have the complete report ready. The medical team finished their assessment of the hostages and loaded them into transport vehicles for evacuation to proper facilities. Chun watched them depart. 6 people alive because she had crawled through spaces that would have stopped bigger soldiers, had neutralized threats using precision instead of force, had executed tactics that conventional thinking had dismissed. Martinez approached Chun carefully, his earlier mockery replaced by something closer to shame. Staff Sergeant, I owe you an apology. What I said at the training facility, what we all said, was wrong. You saved those people today, using exactly the capabilities we made fun of. Chun met his eyes. You valued the wrong measurements, Sergeant. That happens when people stop thinking about what actually matters in the mission. Kowalski and Burns stood back, but their expressions showed similar recognition. They had laughed at weakness, made jokes about inadequacy, questioned her place in the unit. Then they had followed her navigation through a facility she had cleared, used her tactical planning to rescue hostages, relied on her expertise at every critical point. Wright moved toward his helicopter, then paused and turned back. Chun, how long until your strength test retest? Tomorrow morning at 0600, sir, Chun responded. That retest is canceled. You have demonstrated the capabilities that actually matter for tactical operations. Your assignment to this unit is confirmed permanently based on mission performance, not arbitrary physical standards. We will be revising evaluation criteria to prevent situations like this from occurring again. He boarded the helicopter and lifted off, leaving the team standing in the mountain clearing with 6 empty restraints that had held hostages for neutralized threats and one completely validated tactical approach that conventional thinking had almost prevented from succeeding. Rodriguez spent 3 days assembling the complete mission analysis, his office at headquarters buried under printed reports, digital files, and mission recordings spanning 18 months of operations under Voss's command. The data told a story that became clearer with each document he reviewed. He pulled up the personnel files first, identifying soldiers removed from the unit during Voss's tenure. For names appeared with consistent patterns. Sergeant Lisa Patterson, removed 8 months prior for failing to meet strength requirements despite expert certifications in communication systems and cyber warfare. Specialist James Chun, no relation to Maya, dismissed 6 months ago for inadequate physical performance despite highest marks in tactical analysis. Corporal Sarah Mitchell, removed 4 months prior citing strength concerns, her file showing advanced language skills and cultural expertise for Middle Eastern operations. Staff Sergeant David Park, dismissed 3 months ago for physical inadequacy, his record indicating specialized training in explosive ordnance disposal and structural engineering. Rodriguez cross-referenced their removal dates with mission outcomes. The pattern emerged immediately. Patterson's removal coincided with communication failures during 2 subsequent missions where her expertise would have been directly applicable. James Chin's dismissal preceded a tactical planning failure that resulted in mission compromise. Mitchell's absence correlated with intelligence gathering problems in an operation requiring cultural navigation. Parts removal came before a mission involving structural breach that encountered unexpected complications. He documented each correlation with precise notation, building the evidence chain that Voss's selection criteria had systematically eliminated capabilities the unit needed. The mission success rates provided quantitative support. Under the previous commander, the unit had maintained an 87% mission success rate with 0 casualties over 2 years. During Voss's 18 months in command, that rate had declined to 72% with 3 injuries requiring medical evacuation. The decline started approximately 4 months after Voss implemented his strength-focused evaluation protocols. Rodriguez pulled incident reports next, finding patterns in the mission complications. 6 operations had encountered problems that specialized expertise could have prevented or mitigated. Communication failures where Patterson's skills would have been critical. Tactical miscalculations where James Chin's analysis capability was absent. Cultural misunderstandings where Mitchell's language expertise was unavailable. Structural assessment errors where Park's engineering knowledge was missing. He found a suppressed report from Patterson, filed 2 months before her removal. She had documented concerns about the new evaluation criteria, noting that specialized skills were being undervalued compared to physical measurements. Her report included statistical analysis showing mission success decline and recommended immediate review of selection protocols. The report had been acknowledged, filed, and apparently ignored. Patterson received transfer orders 6 weeks later. Rodriguez contacted Patterson at her current assignment, a communications unit 300 miles away. She answered the video call with professional courtesy but visible skepticism. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, what can I do for you?" Rodriguez explained the investigation, Wright's directive for comprehensive analysis, and the pattern he had identified. Patterson's expression shifted from skepticism to vindication. "I tried to raise these concerns 8 months ago," she said, her voice carrying frustration that time had not diminished. Voss dismissed my analysis as questioning his authority. He told me that real soldiers focused on physical capability, not paperwork and statistics. 2 months later, I received transfer orders to a non-combat communications assignment. Rodriguez made detailed notes. "Did you observe specific incidents where specialized expertise was dismissed in favor of physical capability?" Patterson pulled up her own files, records she had maintained despite the transfer. "Multiple incidents." Voss rejected tactical input from specialists if they did not meet his physical standards. He created a unit culture where strength was the only valued metric. Soldiers with advanced technical training were marginalized if they could not match the lifting numbers of larger personnel. The message was clear. Your expertise does not matter if you cannot deadlift above arbitrary thresholds. How did this affect mission planning? Patterson's expression hardened. Missions became one-dimensional. Direct assault approaches favored over tactical alternatives. Specialized capabilities ignored during planning phases. I watched 3 missions encounter preventable complications because the specialized knowledge to avoid those problems had been removed from the unit or dismissed during briefings. Rodriguez documented everything, building a comprehensive record of systemic failure. He contacted the other dismissed soldiers, finding similar accounts. James Chun described tactical recommendations dismissed with statements about physical inadequacy. Mitchell recounted cultural intelligence being ignored because she had failed strength evaluations. Park detailed structural assessments rejected in favor of brute force approaches. The pattern was undeniable. Voss had systematically created a unit culture that valued a single metric while dismissing diverse capabilities that mission success actually required. Rodriguez expanded his investigation to other units, checking whether similar evaluation criteria existed elsewhere. He found 3 additional special operations units using comparable strength-focused selection with little consideration for specialized skills. He pulled their mission data and found similar declines in success rates, similar patterns of preventable complications, similar losses of technical expertise. The problem was institutional, not individual. He compiled everything into a comprehensive report: personnel data, mission outcomes, incident analyses, testimony from dismissed soldiers, comparative data from other units, and statistical evidence of correlation between evaluation criteria and mission performance. The document ran 63 pages with supporting appendices. Wright reviewed the report in his office with Rodriguez present, his expression growing more severe with each section. "This is worse than I anticipated. We're not talking about isolated poor judgment. This is systematic elimination of critical capabilities across multiple units based on flawed assessment criteria." "Yes, sir," Rodriguez confirmed. The data shows clear correlation between strength-only evaluation and declining mission effectiveness. Units that maintain balanced assessment of physical capability and specialized skills show higher success rates and lower casualty numbers. Wright highlighted a section of the report. You have testimony here from 4 dismissed soldiers, all of whom had expertise directly applicable to recent mission failures. How was this not identified earlier? Rodriguez chose his words carefully. The evaluation metrics focus command attention on physical standards compliance rather than mission outcome analysis. As long as units met physical benchmarks, the declining success rates were attributed to mission difficulty rather than capability gaps. Wright closed the report and looked at Rodriguez directly. I am convening a formal review board for VOS with 3 senior officers. You will present this analysis as primary evidence. I am also initiating a special operations command review of evaluation protocols across all tactical units. This pattern ends now. Rodriguez nodded. Yes, sir. I have prepared briefing materials for the review board. Wright stood and walked to his office window, looking out over the training facilities where soldiers worked through various qualification courses. What happened with Staff Sergeant Chun should never have occurred. A soldier with her record and capabilities should never have faced removal based on a single physical metric. The fact that she succeeded in that mission using the exact characteristics that Voss considered weaknesses demonstrates the fundamental flaw in our evaluation thinking. The review board will need to address not just Voss's command decisions, but the institutional culture that allowed this approach to proliferate, Rodriguez said. We have 4 soldiers who were wrongfully dismissed, multiple missions that were compromised unnecessarily, and a selection system that systematically eliminates valuable capabilities. Wright turned back from the window. Start preparing recommendations for revised evaluation protocols. We need multi-factor assessment that considers mission requirements, specialized skills, tactical reasoning, and physical capability appropriate to specific roles. Not one-size-fits-all strength testing that ignores everything else that makes an effective soldier. Rodriguez made notes. I will draft initial recommendations based on the data analysis. The statistics strongly support scenario-based evaluation, where candidates demonstrate problem-solving using available resources rather than pure physical benchmarks. Include provisions for reinstating dismissed soldiers with review of their cases. Wright added. Patterson, James Chun, Mitchell, and Park all deserve the opportunity to return to tactical assignments if they choose. Their expertise was valuable then and remains valuable now. Yes, sir. I will coordinate with personnel for reinstatement processing. Wright picked up the report again, its weight substantial in his hands. This goes to the review board tomorrow morning at 0800. Voss will be present to answer for these decisions. Make sure you have every piece of supporting evidence ready for presentation. Rodriguez stood. Everything is prepared, Colonel. The evidence is comprehensive and conclusive. After Rodriguez left, Wright remained in his office reviewing the mountain of data that showed how badly the system had failed. One soldier had nearly been lost because conventional thinking could not see past a single measurement. 6 hostages had nearly died because expertise was dismissed in favor of arbitrary physical standards. An entire institutional approach to soldier evaluation had been exposed as fundamentally flawed. Tomorrow the reckoning would begin. The formal review board convened at 0800 in a conference room designed for serious proceedings. 3 senior officers sat behind a long table, their rank insignia representing decades of combined special operations experience. Colonel Wright occupied the center position. To his left sat Colonel Sarah Hendricks, a veteran of mountain warfare operations with 23 years of service. To his right, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson, whose background included tactical training development and unit evaluation protocols. Master Sergeant Derek Voss entered in dress uniform, his bearing correct and his expression carefully controlled. He took the designated seat facing the review panel while Rodriguez positioned himself at the presentation station with his compiled evidence displayed on multiple screens. Wright opened the proceedings with formal precision. This review board is convened to examine command decisions and unit evaluation criteria under Master Sergeant Derek Voss's leadership. Lieutenant Rodriguez will present findings from his investigation. Master Sergeant Voss will have the opportunity to respond to all evidence, and provide his perspective on the documented decisions. This board will then determine appropriate actions based on the complete record. Rodriguez activated the first presentation screen showing personnel data. Over 18 months under Master Sergeant Voss's command, 4 soldiers were removed from the unit citing failure to meet physical strength standards. I will address each case individually with supporting documentation. The screen displayed Sergeant Lisa Patterson's file. Patterson was dismissed 8 months ago despite expert certifications in communication systems and cyber warfare. Her tactical scores placed her in the top 5% of special operations personnel. 2 missions following her removal encountered communication failures that required external support to resolve. Patterson had filed concerns about evaluation criteria 2 months before her dismissal, noting correlation between new standards and declining mission effectiveness. Rodriguez pulled up Patterson's suppressed report. Her analysis showed mission success declining from 87% to 79% in the 6 months after strength-focused evaluation was implemented. She recommended immediate review. The report was acknowledged, but no action was taken. She received transfer orders 6 weeks later. Colonel Hendricks leaned forward. Master Sergeant Voss, did you review Sergeant Patterson's concerns before initiating her transfer? Voss's jaw tightened slightly. I reviewed her report, ma'am. I assessed that her concerns reflected resistance to maintaining high standards rather than legitimate operational issues. Her transfer was initiated based on her inability to meet unit physical requirements, not in response to her report. Hendricks made a notation. Continue, Lieutenant Rodriguez. The screens shifted to show Specialist James Chun, Corporal Sarah Mitchell, and Staff Sergeant David Park in sequence. Rodriguez documented each case with the same pattern. High specialized expertise, expert certifications, strong tactical scores, dismissed for physical inadequacy, followed by missions that encountered problems their expertise could have prevented. James Chin's tactical analysis capability was removed 6 months ago. The next month, a mission planning failure resulted in compromised operation requiring emergency extraction. Mitchell's language and cultural expertise was dismissed 4 months ago. Subsequent intelligence gathering in Middle Eastern operations encountered difficulties that her skills would have addressed. Park's structural engineering knowledge was lost 3 months ago. A breach operation 2 weeks later encountered unexpected complications with building integrity. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson studied the data carefully. Lieutenant Rodriguez, what was the mission success rate before these dismissals compared to after? Rodriguez displayed the statistical analysis. Under previous command, this unit maintained 87% mission success with 0 casualties requiring medical evacuation over 24 months. Under Master Sergeant Voss's command, success rate declined to 72% with 3 injuries requiring medevac over 18 months. The decline correlates directly with implementation of strength-only evaluation criteria and removal of specialized technical experts. Thompson turned to Voss. Master Sergeant, how do you account for this statistical correlation? Voss straightened in his chair. Sir, mission difficulty increased during my command period. The operations we conducted were more complex and higher risk than previous assignments. The success rate decline reflects mission complexity, not evaluation criteria. Rodriguez activated another screen. I have compared mission difficulty ratings across both periods using official operational risk assessments. The average mission difficulty rating actually decreased by 8% during Master Sergeant Voss's command. The operations were less complex on average, yet success rates declined significantly. The room fell silent for several seconds while the panel absorbed this information. Wright spoke next, his tone measured but firm. Master Sergeant Voss, let us discuss the recent hostage rescue operation. Staff Sergeant Chun recommended a tactical approach using ventilation shaft infiltration during mission planning. You dismissed this recommendation. Walk the board through your reasoning. Voss took a breath before responding. Colonel, I assessed that the ventilation approach was too complex for rapid deployment and presented uncontrolled variables. I believe direct assault through main entrance provided more reliable tactical execution using the team's strengths. Wright pulled up Chen's service record on the main display. Staff Sergeant Chen has 47 successful missions, highest tactical reasoning scores in unit history, and expert certifications in mountain warfare, tunnel navigation, confined space operations, explosives disposal, and close-quarters combat. She specifically holds expertise directly applicable to every aspect of this mission profile. Why was this expertise dismissed? Voss's professional composure showed the first real crack. Sir, my concern was that Chun had failed to meet the unit's physical strength requirements. I questioned whether she could handle the physical demands of tactical operations in challenging terrain. Hendricks interjected sharply. Master Sergeant, the mission record shows that Chen's approach avoided alarm systems, blast door complications, and structural collapse that your direct assault encountered. She navigated infiltration routes your team could not physically access. She eliminated 4 threats with precision marksmanship. She disarmed 6 explosive devices. She provided tactical command that achieved complete mission success with 0 casualties. Which of those accomplishments required her to deadlift 235 pounds? Voss had no immediate answer. Wright continued without mercy. Your team spent 20 minutes clearing tunnel collapse caused by breaching charges used on doors that Chen's route bypassed entirely. 6 hostages sat with live explosives while your approach was delayed by preventable obstacles. Chun neutralized those explosives and positioned for tactical superiority while your team was still dealing with rubble. The successful outcome occurred despite your tactical decisions, not because of them. Thompson added his assessment. Master Sergeant, you selected team members based purely on physical strength and dismissed the one soldier whose specialized training was directly mission-critical. That represents fundamental failure in tactical judgment and mission analysis. Rodriguez presented the final section of evidence. I have also identified 3 other special operations units using similar strength-focused evaluation criteria. All 3 show comparable declines in mission success rates and similar patterns of losing technical specialists. This is not an isolated command issue, but an institutional pattern that requires systemic correction. Wright addressed Voss directly. Master Sergeant, you create a unit culture where physical strength was the only valued metric. You marginalized soldiers with advanced technical training if they did not meet arbitrary lifting thresholds. You dismissed tactical input from specialists based on their physical measurements rather than their expertise. You removed 4 capable soldiers whose skills the unit needed. You ignored statistical evidence of declining performance. You suppressed legitimate concerns raised by subordinates. The cumulative effect was a unit less capable of mission success than when you assumed command. Colonel Hendricks reviewed her notes before speaking. Master Sergeant Voss, this board finds that your command decisions systematically prioritized a single evaluation metric while dismissing diverse capabilities that mission success requires. Your judgment in the hostage rescue operation endangered 6 civilian lives through tactical choices that ignored relevant expertise. Your evaluation criteria created documented mission complications and capability gaps. Thompson delivered the next portion. You are hereby removed from unit command effective immediately. You will be reassigned to logistics operations where your responsibilities will not include tactical personnel evaluation or mission planning. This reassignment is permanent and will be noted in your service record. Wright concluded the board's decisions. Staff Sergeant Chun is confirmed for permanent unit assignment based on demonstrated mission performance. Her strength test failure is expunged from record as irrelevant to tactical capability assessment. The 4 dismissed soldiers, Patterson, James Chun, Mitchell, and Park, will be offered immediate reinstatement with full review of their cases and restoration of any career progression they lost due to wrongful dismissal. He looked at Voss with an expression that combined disappointment and resolve. Master Sergeant, you had soldiers under your command with exceptional capabilities. You failed to recognize those capabilities because you measured them against the wrong standards. That failure nearly cost lives. It definitely cost careers. This board ensures it will not happen again under your authority. Voss stood when dismissed, his career trajectory permanently altered by 18 months of decisions that valued the wrong measurements. He exited the conference room while Rodriguez began presenting the draft recommendations for revised evaluation protocols to the panel, the institutional correction already beginning to take shape. 3 weeks after the review board concluded, Chen sat in a conference room at Special Operations Command headquarters reviewing the draft evaluation protocols she had been asked to help develop. The transition from field operative to training development specialist had happened quickly once Wright recognized that the person who had exposed the system's flaws was also positioned to help fix them. Colonel Hendricks entered with a folder of mission data and took the seat across from Chun. Staff Sergeant, I have reviewed your preliminary recommendations for multi-factor assessment protocols. Before we present these to the SOCOM board, I want to understand your thinking on the scenario-based evaluation component. Chen pulled up her presentation materials. Ma'am, traditional strength testing measures raw physical capability in isolation. It does not assess how soldiers apply their capabilities to actual mission requirements. Scenario-based evaluation presents candidates with problems that require using available resources, specialized knowledge, and tactical thinking rather than pure physical benchmarks. Hendricks studied the proposed scenarios Chun had designed. Walk me through this infiltration assessment. Chun activated the detailed breakdown. Candidates face a confined space navigation challenge with dimensional constraints. Success requires analyzing the space, selecting appropriate approach method, and executing infiltration while maintaining operational security. We evaluate decision-making process, technical knowledge application, and adaptive problem-solving. Physical capability matters, but so does the candidate's ability to assess when smaller frame provides advantage versus when alternative approach is needed. This eliminates arbitrary strength minimums? No, ma'am. It contextualizes them. We still assess physical capability, but we evaluate whether candidates can match their capabilities to mission requirements. A soldier who can deadlift 400 pounds but cannot analyze structural vulnerabilities may be less valuable in certain operations than a soldier who lifts 200 but understands explosive force distribution and building integrity. Hendricks made notes on her tablet. How do we prevent this from simply creating different arbitrary standards? Chen had anticipated this question. Each evaluation component ties directly to documented mission requirements from after-action reports spanning 5 years. We identified the actual capabilities that correlated with mission success and designed assessments that measure those capabilities. When physical strength was critical to success, it appears in the data. When tactical analysis was critical, that appears too. The evaluation reflects what actually matters in operations rather than assumed correlations. Wright entered the conference room with Lieutenant Colonel Thompson and Rodriguez. The group had been meeting regularly to develop the new protocols, drawing on Chen's first-hand experience with the old system's failures. Wright took his seat at the head of the table. Staff Sergeant Chen, Colonel Hendricks, and I will be presenting your evaluation framework to the SOCOM Review Board next week. They will want specific evidence that this approach improves mission outcomes. What data supports that claim? Chen displayed statistical analysis Rodriguez had compiled. Sir, we analyzed 3 units that already use balanced evaluation similar to what we are proposing. Their mission success rates average 89% compared to 72% for strength-only evaluation units. Their casualty rates are 40% lower. Their qualified candidate pools are 60% larger, providing better selection options. Thompson leaned forward to examine the numbers. These 3 units maintained specialized expertise across technical domains. Yes, sir, Chen confirmed. They retained communications specialists, structural engineers, language experts, cyber warfare operators, and tactical analysts alongside traditional combat roles. Their mission planning incorporated diverse skill sets, and their success rates reflect the value of that diversity. Wright nodded. The board will also want to hear from the reinstated soldiers. Patterson, James Chun, Mitchell, and Park all accepted reinstatement offers. How are their transitions progressing? Rodriguez provided the update. All four have returned to tactical assignments. Patterson rejoined her original unit and immediately contributed to resolving communication protocols that had degraded in her absence. James Chun is currently deployed on an operation where his tactical analysis has already prevented complications. Mitchell is working with intelligence teams where her cultural expertise is being fully utilized. Park has been assigned to breach operations planning where his structural engineering knowledge is recognized as critical rather than supplementary. Hendricks pulled up additional data. We also have preliminary results from the pilot program using Chen's evaluation framework. 23 candidates assessed through the new protocols versus 19 through traditional strength testing. The new protocol group shows stronger performance across tactical reasoning, problem-solving under pressure, and mission adaptability measures. What about their physical capabilities? Thompson asked. The new protocol candidates meet physical requirements appropriate to their assigned roles, Chen explained. We are not eliminating fitness standards. We are matching those standards to actual mission needs rather than applying arbitrary minimums universally. A sniper needs different physical capabilities than a breaching specialist. A communications operator needs different capabilities than a heavy weapon specialist. One-size-fits-all strength testing ignored those differences. Wright stood and walked to the display screen showing mission outcome comparisons. The fundamental argument we present to the SOCOM board is this. Evaluation systems should predict mission success, not measure compliance with arbitrary physical benchmarks. Staff Sergeant Chun succeeded in a critical hostage rescue using capabilities that strength testing said were inadequate. For other soldiers were dismissed despite having expertise that subsequent missions needed. That pattern represents systematic evaluation failure. He turned back to the assembled group. We have statistical evidence showing better outcomes with balanced evaluation. We have documented cases of wrongful dismissals based on flawed criteria. We have pilot program results supporting the new framework. We have testimony from reinstated soldiers whose expertise proved valuable. The case for change is comprehensive. Chun pulled up the final section of her presentation. Sir, I have also drafted recommendations for quarterly review processes to prevent future evaluation drift. No matter how good the initial protocols are, they need regular assessment against actual mission outcomes to ensure they remain relevant. Thompson reviewed the proposed review structure. This includes feedback mechanisms from field units? Yes, sir. Company commanders submit quarterly reports noting which capabilities contributed most significantly to mission success and which capability gaps created complications. That data feeds into continuous evaluation refinement. Hendricks highlighted a specific provision. You have also included protection for soldiers who raise concerns about evaluation criteria. That addresses what happened with Patterson. Chen nodded. Ma'am, Patterson identified problems 8 months before the crisis point, but faced retaliation for speaking up. The new protocols include formal channels for evaluation concerns and protection against career consequences for legitimate feedback. If someone sees the system failing, they need to be able to report it without fear. Wright returned to his seat. The SOCOM board meets Tuesday at 1400 hours. Colonel Hendricks and I will present the framework with Staff Sergeant Chun available for technical questions. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson will provide the statistical analysis. Lieutenant Rodriguez will present the investigative findings that identified the need for change. We make a comprehensive case that current evaluation systems are failing soldiers and compromising missions. Rodriguez added one more piece of information. Sir, I've been contacted by representatives from 3 other military branches asking about our evaluation review. The problems we identified are not unique to special operations or even to the Army. This has potential for broader institutional impact. Wright considered this. Let us succeed with SOCOM first, then address wider application. But yes, if we can demonstrate improved outcomes through better evaluation methods, other branches will take notice. Chun thought about the training facility where she had failed that deadlift test 4 weeks ago, about Kowalski and Burns laughing, about Voss dismissing her expertise, about the ventilation shaft that her size had allowed her to navigate. The system that had almost discarded her was being rebuilt to recognize that different did not mean inadequate, that specialized meant valuable, that strength took forms that conventional testing never measured. The meeting continued for another 90 minutes, refining presentation materials and anticipating board questions. Chun provided detailed technical explanations for each evaluation component, drawing on her experience with both the old system's failures and successful mission outcomes that traditional testing would never have predicted. When a meeting adjourned, Wright asked Chun to remain behind. "Staff Sergeant, your work on this evaluation framework has been exceptional. You took personal experience with systemic failure and transformed it into institutional improvement. That demonstrates exactly the kind of tactical thinking and problem-solving ability that your deadlift score never measured." Chun met his eyes directly. "Sir, 6 people are alive because someone recognized that the wrong measurement almost prevented the right solution. I want to ensure that recognition becomes standard practice rather than exceptional judgment." Wright extended his hand. "You're doing exactly that, Staff Sergeant. Tuesday, we present your framework to the board. Then we change how this institution evaluates soldiers. Your contribution to that change will have impact far beyond any single mission." Chun left headquarters that evening knowing that the real battle was not climbing obstacle courses or navigating ventilation shafts. It was changing institutional thinking to recognize that capability came in many forms, that expertise mattered as much as strength, and that the best soldiers were not always the ones who could lift the most weight. The Special Operations Command Review Board assembled in the main briefing theater at 1400 hours on Tuesday. 12 senior officers occupied the front rows, representing every major special operations unit across the armed forces. Their collective experience spanned decades of tactical operations, training development, and personnel evaluation. They had been briefed on the basic premise of the meeting, but had not yet seen the comprehensive evidence supporting the proposed changes. General Catherine Morrison, SOCOM Deputy Commander, called the proceedings to order. This review addresses fundamental questions about how we evaluate soldier capability and predict mission success. Colonel Wright will present findings from an investigation that identified significant problems with current evaluation methods. Colonel Hendricks will detail proposed protocols designed to address those problems. We will examine evidence, hear testimony, and determine whether institutional change is warranted. Wright stepped to the presentation station where multiple screens displayed data ready for his briefing. 4 weeks ago, a hostage rescue operation achieved complete success with 0 casualties. That mission outcome was remarkable not because of how it succeeded, but because current evaluation standards nearly prevented that success from occurring at all. He activated the first screen showing Chen's service record beside her failed strength test results. Staff Sergeant Maya Chun has 47 successful missions and the highest tactical reasoning scores in unit history. 3 days before the hostage rescue, she failed to meet physical strength requirements and faced removal from her unit. The Master Sergeant commanding that unit had dismissed her expertise repeatedly, citing her inability to deadlift 235 pounds as disqualifying her from tactical operations. Wright displayed the mission timeline next. When the hostage crisis developed, that same Master Sergeant selected his assault team based purely on physical strength measurements. He dismissed Chen's tactical recommendations that addressed facility-specific challenges. His strength-focused approach triggered alarms, encountered unexpected obstacles, caused structural collapse, and left 6 hostages with live explosives for 20 minutes while his team cleared preventable complications. The screens shifted to thermal imagery and mission documentation. Chun infiltrated through ventilation shafts her physically larger teammates could not navigate. She neutralized explosive threats using technical expertise. She established tactical superiority through positioning that conventional assault never achieved. She commanded the successful extraction that saved 6 lives. Every capability that enabled that success was a capability that traditional strength testing said was inadequate. General Morrison leaned forward, her attention focused. Colonel Wright, are you arguing that physical fitness standards should be eliminated? No, ma'am, Wright replied firmly. I am arguing that physical fitness standards should be relevant to actual mission requirements rather than arbitrary minimums applied universally. Chin size was an advantage for infiltration operations requiring navigation through confined spaces. A soldier who excels at heavy equipment operation may need different physical capabilities than a soldier specializing in long-range reconnaissance. One evaluation standard cannot effectively assess both. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson took over the presentation, displaying statistical analysis. We examined mission outcomes across 12 special operations units over 5 years. Units using balanced evaluation that considers specialized skills alongside physical capability show 89% mission success rates. Units using strength-focused evaluation show 72% success rates. The difference is statistically significant and operationally critical. He highlighted specific data points. We also found that strength-only evaluation systematically eliminates technical specialists whose expertise directly contributes to mission success. Communications experts, structural engineers, cyber warfare operators, cultural specialists, and tactical analysts were dismissed from multiple units for failing to meet physical benchmarks. Subsequent missions then encountered complications that those specialists could have prevented. Rodriguez presented next, his investigation findings documented in comprehensive detail. I identified 4 soldiers wrongfully dismissed from one unit based solely on strength test failures despite having expert-level technical certifications. I documented that mission success rates declined by 15 percentage points after these dismissals. I found suppressed reports from subordinates who raised concerns about evaluation criteria before the problems became critical. The pattern extended beyond one unit to at least 3 others using similar evaluation methods. Colonel Hendricks activated the proposed evaluation framework Chun had developed. We recommend multi-factor assessment protocols that evaluate tactical reasoning, specialized knowledge application, scenario-based problem solving, and physical capability appropriate to specific operational roles. Candidates demonstrate their abilities through mission-relevant challenges rather than isolated physical tests. She walked through the framework components systematically. Infiltration specialists navigate confined spaces while maintaining operational security. Breach specialists analyze structural vulnerabilities and select appropriate force application. Communications specialists establish secure networks under time pressure. Each evaluation directly tests capabilities that actual missions require. Physical fitness remains essential, but we measure fitness relevant to the soldier's specialty rather than applying universal minimums. General Morrison studied the proposed framework carefully. Colonel Hendricks, how do we ensure this does not simply create new arbitrary standards in different areas? Each evaluation component ties to documented mission requirements from 5 years of after-action analysis, Hendricks explained. We identified which capabilities correlated with mission success and designed assessments measuring those specific capabilities. The framework includes quarterly reviews comparing evaluation results to actual mission outcomes, allowing continuous refinement based on operational data. Wright brought Chun forward. General Morrison, Staff Sergeant Chun developed this framework based on first-hand experience with the old system's failures and comprehensive analysis of what actually drives mission success. She can address technical questions about implementation. Morrison gestured for Chun to proceed. Staff Sergeant, your proposed framework significantly expands evaluation complexity. How do we implement this across multiple units with limited resources? Chun had prepared extensively for this question. Ma'am, we conducted pilot testing with 42 candidates using the new protocols. Implementation required 3 additional days per evaluation cycle but produced candidates who showed 23% better performance in tactical reasoning assessments and 31% better performance in adaptive problem-solving measures. The resource investment yields measurably better soldier selection. Another general in the front row spoke up. Staff Sergeant Shun. Some would argue that physical strength remains the foundation of military capability. How do you respond to concerns that this framework diminishes fitness standards? Chun met his eyes directly. Sir, this framework does not diminish fitness standards. It contextualizes them. A soldier must be physically capable of performing their assigned mission role. A sniper needs endurance and stability for long-duration positioning. A heavy weapons operator needs strength for equipment handling. A reconnaissance specialist needs speed and agility for rapid movement. Evaluating all three against the same deadlift requirement ignores the reality that they need different physical capabilities to succeed in their different roles. Morrison reviewed the statistical evidence again. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson, your data shows 17 percentage point difference in mission success between evaluation methods. That magnitude suggests systematic problems with current approaches. What confidence level do we have in this correlation? Thompson displayed the statistical analysis in detail. Ma'am, we controlled for mission difficulty, unit experience levels, operational theater conditions, and equipment availability. The correlation between balanced evaluation and mission success remains consistent across all control variables with 95% confidence. The evidence strongly supports that evaluation methodology directly impacts operational outcomes. Rodriguez added supporting information. General Morrison, we also have testimony from reinstated soldiers whose technical expertise was previously dismissed. All four are now contributing significantly to current operations. Their unit commanders report that capabilities these soldiers bring were absent during their dismissal period, and that missions suffered measurably from those capability gaps. Morrison conferred briefly with the other senior officers before addressing the room. The evidence presented today demonstrates serious flaws in current evaluation methodology. The proposed framework appears to address those flaws while maintaining necessary standards. I am authorizing immediate implementation of this evaluation protocol across all special operations units under SOCOM authority. Existing personnel will be reviewed under the new standards with opportunities for specialization reclassification. Wrongful dismissals will be corrected with reinstatement offered to affected soldiers. She looked at Wright directly. Colonel Wright, you will oversee implementation with Staff Sergeant Chin assigned as technical advisor for framework execution. I want quarterly reports on mission outcomes compared to evaluation predictions. If this approach works as the data suggests, we will expand it beyond special operations to conventional forces. Wright nodded. Yes, ma'am. Implementation begins immediately. Morrison stood, signaling the conclusion of formal proceedings. This institution exists to accomplish missions that protect national security. Our evaluation systems should identify soldiers capable of mission success, not soldiers capable of meeting arbitrary benchmarks. Today we correct a systemic failure that nearly cost lives and definitely cost careers. The change starts now. The review board adjourned with authorization granted for complete evaluation reform. Chun remained at the presentation station while senior officers approached with technical questions about implementation details. The system that had almost discarded her was being rebuilt according to principles she had helped establish. Principles that recognize capability came in many forms, and expertise mattered as much as any physical measurement. 6 months after the SOCOM board authorization, Chin stood in the Training Development Office reviewing implementation results from across 17 special operations units. The data spread across 3 monitors showed the transformation taking measurable form, numbers that validated the framework she had helped design. Rodriguez entered with updated quarterly reports. Staff Sergeant, the latest mission outcome analysis came in this morning. Units operating under the new evaluation protocols are maintaining 91% success rates. That is 4 percentage points higher than our initial projections and 19 points higher than strength-only evaluation units were achieving. Chen studied the breakdown by unit and mission type. The improvement is consistent across different operational specialties. Reconnaissance, direct action, counterterrorism, all showing similar gains. The correlation between balanced evaluation and mission success is holding across diverse contexts. Rodriguez pulled up personnel data next. We also have reinstatement completion numbers. All 4 originally dismissed soldiers have returned to active tactical assignments. Patterson was promoted to technical sergeant and now leads communications integration for her unit. James Chun received unit commendation for tactical planning that prevented complications in 2 separate operations. Mitchell is training new cultural specialists using curriculum she developed. Park was selected for advanced structural analysis certification based on his contributions to breach operations. Chun felt satisfaction at seeing careers restored that arbitrary standards had nearly destroyed. What about the other units that were using strength-only evaluation? Have they completed transition to the new protocols? All 17 units have fully implemented the framework, Rodriguez confirmed. We are tracking 3 units that initially resisted the changes. Their commanders argued that traditional standards had served effectively for decades. General Morrison mandated compliance and assigned implementation teams to those units specifically. And the results? Rodriguez displayed comparison data. 2 of the 3 resistant units now show the same performance improvements as early adopters. The 3rd is still transitioning, but early indicators suggest similar outcomes. Resistance was cultural rather than practical. Once the protocols were actually implemented, the benefits became apparent even to skeptical commanders. Wright entered the office with Colonel Hendricks, both carrying briefing materials. Staff Sergeant Chun. The Pentagon has requested presentation of the evaluation framework for possible application across all military branches. Your work is drawing attention beyond special operations. Chun looked up from her monitors. Sir, expanding to conventional forces would require modifications to account for different mission profiles and unit structures. The principles remain valid, but the specific assessments would need adaptation. Hendricks set her materials on the conference table. That is exactly what the Pentagon wants to discuss. They have preliminary data showing similar evaluation problems in conventional infantry, armor, aviation, and support units. Technical specialists being dismissed for failing physical standards unrelated to their actual duties. Mission complications arising from capability gaps. The pattern you identified in special operations appears to exist throughout the military. Wright activated the main display screen showing organizational charts. The Secretary of Defense wants a comprehensive review of evaluation standards across all branches. You are being considered for assignment to that review team as technical advisor, drawing on your implementation experience with SOCOM units. Chen processed this information carefully. Sir, that assignment would remove me from tactical operations entirely. I would be in training development and policy work full-time. Wright nodded. Yes, and that assignment would likely lead to promotion and expanded responsibility for institutional reform. Your tactical career would effectively become a policy career focused on how we train and evaluate soldiers rather than leading missions directly. Is that something you want, Staff Sergeant? Hendricks asked. You proved yourself as an exceptional tactical operator. Now you have opportunity to shape how the institution develops future operators. Both paths have value. Chun thought about the ventilation shaft she had navigated, the hostages she had helped rescue, the missions where her specialized skills had contributed to success. She also thought about the 4 dismissed soldiers now restored to service, the evaluation framework preventing future wrongful dismissals, the mission success rates improving across 17 units, because capabilities were finally being measured correctly. Sir, ma'am, if I remain in tactical operations, I can contribute to mission success for perhaps another 10 years before age and physical factors limit my effectiveness. If I work on institutional reform, I can potentially impact how thousands of soldiers are evaluated and deployed over decades. The mathematics favor policy work for long-term operational impact. Wright smiled slightly. That is the tactical thinking that made you effective in the field and will make you effective in this role. Your ability to analyze situations and identify optimal approaches applies whether you are planning a hostage rescue or designing evaluation systems. Martinez appeared at the office door, waiting for acknowledgement. Chun gestured him inside. The sergeant who had once mocked her weakness now worked under her supervision in training development, his earlier judgment replaced by hard-earned respect. Staff Sergeant Chun, I have the candidate assessment results you requested. 23 soldiers evaluated under the new protocols last week. All showed strong performance in scenario-based testing, and we have diverse specialization distribution across technical fields. Chun reviewed the results Martinez provided. Good. These candidates will enter operational units next month. Track their performance through first deployment and compare outcomes to historical data from traditionally evaluated soldiers in similar roles. Martinez nodded. Yes, Staff Sergeant. I will coordinate with unit commanders for feedback collection. He paused before adding, I want you to know that watching this framework succeed across multiple units has been educational for me. I valued the wrong measurements before. That nearly cost us an exceptional operator and definitely cost missions the expertise they needed. Chun met his eyes directly. You learn from the experience, Sergeant. That matters more than the initial error. Keep that perspective as you work with new candidates. Help them understand that capability takes many forms and expertise matters as much as any physical benchmark. After Martinez left, Rodriguez pulled up additional data. Staff Sergeant, I also have preliminary results from the 3 units that were using strength-only evaluation in other branches. The Air Force unit evaluating pararescue specialists and the Navy unit assessing SEAL candidates both showed similar patterns to what we found in Army Special Operations. Technical experts dismissed for strength test failures. Subsequent missions encountering complications that dismissed expertise would have addressed. The problem is genuinely institutional, Hendricks observed, not limited to one branch or one specialty area. The entire military evaluation system evolved around assumptions about physical capability that do not account for modern warfare's technical complexity. Chun displayed a comparison chart showing evaluation evolution over 50 years. Ma'am, the fundamental evaluation framework was developed when military operations were primarily kinetic and physical. Technology has transformed warfare into something far more complex. But our evaluation methods never adapted to measure the capabilities that technology-intensive operations require. Wright studied the historical progression. So we are still evaluating 21st century soldiers using mid-20th century standards designed for different operational realities. Essentially, yes, sir, Chun confirmed. We measure what was important 50 years ago and assume it predicts success in contemporary operations. The data clearly shows that assumption is flawed. Hendricks made notes on her tablet. This context will be important for the Pentagon presentation. We're not just proposing better evaluation methods. We are proposing evaluation methods appropriate to current operational requirements rather than historical assumptions. Rodriguez added one more piece of information. Staff Sergeant, I received a message from Sergeant Patterson this morning. She wanted you to know that her unit successfully completed a mission that required establishing secure communications in hostile territory under electronic countermeasures. She said her technical expertise was critical to mission success and that under the old evaluation system, she would not have been present to contribute. She asked me to thank you for building the framework that allowed her to return to service. Chun felt the weight of that message, understanding that the work she had done affected real soldiers facing real missions with real consequences. For dismissed, soldiers restored. 17 units showing improved success rates. Dozens of candidates evaluated fairly according to their actual capabilities. Hundreds of future soldiers who would benefit from evaluation systems that measured what truly mattered. Wright checked his schedule. Staff Sergeant Chun, the Pentagon presentation is scheduled for next month. Between now and then, compile comprehensive implementation results outcome comparisons, and recommendations for cross-branch application. This is your opportunity to expand institutional reform beyond special operations to the entire military structure. Yes, sir, Chen replied. I will have complete materials ready for presentation. After Wright and Hendricks departed, Chen returned to her monitors showing data from 17 units, 42 pilot program candidates for reinstated soldiers, and mission success rates that proved capabilities came in forms that traditional testing had never measured. The office was quiet except for the hum of equipment and the soft sound of Rodriguez working at his station. She thought about that deadlift bar, 235 pounds, that had nearly ended her career. Then she thought about 6 hostages alive, for soldiers restored to service, evaluation protocols that recognized expertise alongside strength, and institutional change spreading across the entire military structure. The measurements that truly mattered had nothing to do with how much weight she could lift and everything to do with what she could accomplish when given the opportunity to contribute her actual capabilities. 1 year after failing the deadlift test that nearly ended her career, Chen stood at the observation deck overlooking the training facility where her transformation from tactical operator to institutional reformer had begun. Below, a new group of candidates worked through scenario-based evaluations using the protocols she had designed. Their diverse body types and specializations represented the fundamental shift in how the military now assess soldier capability. A candidate with a slight frame navigated confined space infiltration challenges, moving through passages that larger soldiers could not access. Another candidate with exceptional upper body strength demonstrated breach techniques, requiring controlled force application. A third candidate worked through communication security scenarios requiring technical expertise rather than physical prowess. Each evaluation measured capabilities relevant to actual mission requirements rather than arbitrary universal standards. Wright joined her at the observation window. Staff Sergeant Chun, or should I say Technical Sergeant Chun now that your promotion is official. How does it feel to watch your evaluation framework in action? Chun watched the candidates below, each being assessed fairly according to their actual strengths. Sir, it feels like we finally measure what matters. Those candidates will enter operational units prepared for roles that match their capabilities. No one will be dismissed for lacking abilities irrelevant to their mission specialty. Wright pulled up data on his tablet. The 1-year results are remarkable. Special operations units using your framework showed 92% mission success rates, compared to 72% under the old system. Casualty rates decreased by 43%. Qualified candidate pools expanded by 68%, giving commanders better selection options. The correlation between balanced evaluation and mission effectiveness is now undeniable. Rodriguez approached with final implementation reports from conventional forces. Technical Sergeant, the Army completed framework rollout across all infantry, armor, and support units last month. Early results mirror what we saw in special operations. The Air Force and Navy are in final implementation phases. The Marines requested accelerated deployment after seeing preliminary success data. Chun accepted the reports and reviewed the statistics that showed institutional transformation taking hold across every branch of service. What about the dismissed soldiers? Beyond our original 4, how many others were identified for reinstatement review? Rodriguez consulted his records. We identified 63 soldiers across all branches who were dismissed for failing physical standards despite having expert-level technical certifications. 57 accepted reinstatement offers. All have returned to active service in roles utilizing their specialized expertise. Their commanders report significant capability improvements in areas those soldiers address. Hendricks arrived with news from the Pentagon. Technical Sergeant Chun, the Secretary of Defense, is issuing formal guidance adopting your evaluation framework as standard military assessment protocol. The guidance specifically cites your hostage rescue mission as demonstrating that diverse capabilities contribute to mission success and that evaluation systems must measure actual operational requirements rather than assume correlations. Chun felt the weight of that recognition, understanding that her experience had fundamentally altered how the military evaluated hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The system that had almost discarded her now bore the imprint of lessons learned from nearly losing her capabilities. Below on the training facility floor, an evaluator worked with a candidate who had completed the infiltration scenario successfully despite being smaller than traditional recruit profiles. The evaluator made notes about the candidate's tactical decision-making, spatial analysis skills, and operational security maintenance. Physical measurements appeared in the assessment, but contextualized as advantages for specific mission types rather than deficiencies against universal standards. Martinez supervised equipment staging for the next evaluation cycle, his role in training development a continuation of his own learning about measuring true capability. He had accompanied Chun to 3 implementation briefings at other bases, helping explain to skeptical commanders how the framework worked in practice. His transformation from mocker to advocate demonstrated that institutional culture could change when evidence made the case convincingly. Wright's tablet chimed with an incoming message. Chun, I'm forwarding you communication from the Naval Special Warfare Command. They successfully completed a maritime infiltration operation using a female operator whose smaller frame allowed access through submarine escape hatches that standardized operators could not navigate. The mission commander specifically cited your evaluation framework as enabling the selection of an operator whose capabilities matched mission requirements rather than dismissing her for not meeting irrelevant physical minimums. Chun read the message, recognizing the parallel to her own experience navigating ventilation shafts that saved 6 hostages. Other soldiers with unconventional capabilities were now being recognized as valuable rather than inadequate, their unique characteristics understood as potential advantages rather than automatic disqualifications. Have you ever thought about what might have happened if Colonel Wright had not been monitoring that hostage situation? Hendricks asked. If someone without his judgment had been in command when Voss wanted to exclude you from the mission? Chun considered that scenario many times. Ma'am, 6 hostages might have died. I would have been dismissed from service 3 days later. The evaluation system would have continued dismissing capable soldiers. Mission success rates would have remained depressed. The institutional problems would have persisted because no crisis forced recognition of the systemic failures. Wright nodded slowly. Sometimes it requires a near catastrophe to expose fundamental problems. Your situation became that catalyst. The fact that you then had the capability and willingness to design solutions made the difference between identifying problems and actually fixing them. Rodriguez pulled up comprehensive statistics showing the full scope of transformation. 1 year of data across 4 military branches. Mission success improved by an average of 18 percentage points. Casualty rates decreased by 39%. Capability gaps reduced by 52%. Qualified candidate pools expanded by 64%. Wrongful dismissals decreased to near zero. The framework had proven itself through the most important measure, actual operational outcomes. Chen's tablet showed a message from Patterson requesting consultation about communications specialist evaluation criteria. Another message from Mitchell asking about cultural expert assessment protocols. James Chun wanted input on tactical analyst training standards. Park sought advice on structural engineering certification requirements. The 4 originally dismissed soldiers had become advocates and implementers of the framework that had restored their careers, each contributing to its continued refinement based on operational experience. Do you ever think about going back to tactical operations? Wright asked. Your skills there were exceptional. This policy role keeps you from direct mission participation. Chun considered the question carefully. Sir, in tactical operations, I might contribute to 50 successful missions over my remaining service years. In this role, I contribute to evaluation systems that affect thousands of soldiers across hundreds of thousands of missions over decades. The mathematics favor institutional impact over individual operational contribution. Wright smiled. That same analytical thinking that made you effective in hostage rescue now drives effective policy development. You apply tactical reasoning to institutional challenges with the same precision you applied it to infiltration planning. Below, the candidate evaluations concluded for the day. Diverse soldiers with varied body types, different specializations, and unique capability combinations have been assessed fairly according to what they could actually contribute to mission success. No one had been dismissed for lacking abilities irrelevant to their intended roles. Everyone had been evaluated on capabilities that operational data proved actually mattered. Chin thought about the question people sometimes asked her in interviews and briefings. Did she ever wonder what her career might have looked like if she had just been able to lift those final 15 pounds? The answer was always the same. If she had passed that test, she would have remained a tactical operator, probably successful, but probably not in position to recognize or fix the systemic evaluation failures. Her weakness, as Voss had defined it, had positioned her to understand that the system measured the wrong things. Her subsequent success using capabilities that testing said were inadequate had proven the measurements were flawed. That combination of experience created the credibility and insight necessary to drive institutional change. They laughed at her weakness. Then she showed them that strength took forms conventional testing never measured, that expertise mattered as much as any physical capability, that diverse soldiers with specialized skills achieved mission success that uniform evaluation criteria would have prevented. The transformation was not about eliminating standards. It was about ensuring standards measured what actually mattered. 1 year after nearly losing her career to arbitrary measurements, Chen had rebuilt how the military evaluated soldier capability. The framework would continue evolving based on operational data, would expand to new contexts and mission types, would be refined by thousands of soldiers whose diverse capabilities would finally be recognized and properly utilized. The work was never finished, but the foundation was solid, built on evidence that proved capability came in many forms and that institutions succeeded when they measured what truly mattered rather than what tradition assumed was important. Chun left the observation deck as evening settled over the training facility. Tomorrow she would brief another implementation team, review more outcome data, refine more evaluation protocols. The tactical missions continued in the field, conducted by soldiers whose capabilities were finally being assessed and deployed correctly. Her mission was different now, but no less important. Ensuring the institution recognized true strength in all its forms and measured soldiers by their actual contribution to mission success rather than their compliance with outdated standards that had almost prevented her from contributing at all.